Hello, everybody. Howdy, howdy, friends.
You can see we're
Welcome,
kicking up.
welcome, welcome. We're so glad everyone's here today. Oh, my earbuds are, or my earphones are all crazy. So I'm going to dive in because we got a lot to cover, and I'm so excited for everyone to see all this amazing, this new feature and all this data and insights that Jessica is going to show you. Are you excited, Jessica? I'm super
I
stoked.
am very excited. It's really incredible to see people are still joining us. So yeah, let's go.
Okay, all right. So we're going to start officially. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Live Outcomes, Improve Live Outcomes with Petfinders' new supply and demand feature. We are so incredibly grateful that you chose to be with us for this hour. I know your time is valuable, and I'm just so grateful you chose to be with us today. Thank you. We have hundreds of animal welfare orgs registered today, so you are amid great company with fellow colleagues and professionals just like you from across the nation. So we're going to dive right in. I've introduced myself. I'm Marcy Gruby, the Director of Integrated Sales and Marketing for Shelters United. Shelters United is a free-to-join group buying organization for animal welfare groups. We save you money on supplies that you use to help heal, protect, and adopt out healthy pets. And I'm here as your friendly neighborhood MC for today's webinar. But before I introduce our first lovely speaker, I'm going to introduce you to someone else right now. And that is the control panel. So how we're all watching and interacting here today. So let me move my notes here. So on this control panel, there's three main functions that I just wanted to point out. On A, you can enter full screen mode or toggle between a windowed mode so you can decide how you want to view this. At the letter B, you can adjust the computer device you are using to hear the webinar on that window. And the letter C, which is our questions window, you'll use that questions box to participate in discussion, share your thoughts, share insights regarding a topic, or ask a question. And we will have time at the end for Q&A. So we'll be watching your questions and we'll have time for that. Also, if you're having trouble hearing or seeing the webinar, there is a support link right here. As soon as the presenters are underway, though, I'll pop in a link in chat. So if you're having an issue, you can go to that support link and get some support, some help. Okay, so let's get this party started. And I'm going to introduce our first wonderful speaker, Jessica Arnold from Petfinder. Jessica is a marketing manager for Petfinder and Purina. Since 2018, Jessica has been building deep relationships with shelters and rescues, working to find the best possible homes for more than 1.8 million animals every year through Petfinder. Also, Jessica has worked with the Purina Shelter Champions to provide the best nutrition possible to the pets in their care as they await their forever homes. Prior to Purina, Jessica spent 8 years leading the fundraising efforts for the Humane Society of Missouri. Jessica came to HSMO through an extensive fundraising career that bridged the visual and performing arts, social services, and childhood cancer. Jessica shares her home with 3 dogs, 2 teens, and her husband of 19 years, Eric. And so excited you're here, Jessica. I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to give you presentership here, ma'am. So please be patient as I hand over the baton to you.
All right. Tell me what you've seen, Marcy.
I see the Petfinder logo on a blank screen.
All right, then we're off. So thank you for that lovely introduction. As Marcy noted, I'm Jessica Arnold with Petfinder and Purina, and I'm really excited to be talking to you all today about a new feature that we have recently launched on our site. So we have been aware of the conversations happening in the animal welfare industry. Particularly earlier this year, there were a lot of questions around adoptable pets across the country and the distribution of them, the visibility and necessity, viability and necessity of transport networks, And we started talking internally about our ability to add value to those conversations. And that led us to kind of take a deep dive into what we had already at our disposal that could contribute in a positive way. So the outcome of those explorations is the supply demand feature that you see here on screen. So the supply demand feature is really intended to visualize the pet seeking that occurs on Petfinder and the geographic distribution of pets posted for adoption on Petfinder. It's really kind of the first time that animal welfare organizations can see where pet seeking is happening in the community or in the state or in the region or across the US, while also understanding where adoptable pets are located in these same areas. We're going to share a quick kind of 5-minute user guide with you that I've narrated, so it's going to be extremely painful for me to hear my own voice being broadcast back to me, but I'll get over that. And first, I want to kind of quickly take you through how you can either log into Petfinder if you have not done so recently, or how you can reset your password if you have not logged in recently. So when you go to pro.petfinder.com, you will come to a page like this, where you will see any one of our announcements, like our wonderful announcement of our partnership with our trusted and valued partner, Shelters United. But more importantly, I want you to take note that you're at pro.petfinder.com. So you're on the shelter rescue professional side of the site. And then you go over here to log in. And when you click login in the upper right-hand corner, you'll be taken to a login screen where you can enter your user credentials, or you can click forgot over in the corner of the password space. And that will generate an email to the email address associated with the user account in your profile. So that's how you can quickly kind of reset password or get back into the member side. If you haven't been there in a while, we'd love to have you back. But now I am going to actually share that quick video that I was talking about that previews our supply demand feature. So here we go. It should be popping up. Hopefully you all can see that.
Hi, this is Jessica on the Petfinder team at Purina, and I'm really excited today to show you a brand new feature that just launched on Petfinder for our members. When you log into your Pro dashboard on pro.petfinder.com, you're going to see a new tab over here in the left-hand column called Supply and Demand. If you select that, you will be taken to a quick explanation up at the top, our quick start guide, with a link to some step-by-step instructions that'll give you more detail. But below that, you will see the meat of what we're talking about today. So what's currently on screen is a compilation of all pet searches that occurred in the United States on Petfinder for the last week, Sunday through Saturday. The categories at the top that you can filter by represent all of the categories that pet seekers can search on when they're looking for a companion animal on Petfinder. And then over here in the corner, you'll see the total searches is captured at the top. Below that, on the right, you will see the breakdown of states and the total number of pet searches within each of those states. And this is ranked in descending order from most to least. You'll also notice there's a little plus sign next to each state. You can expand and it will give you even more detail. You will see a city by city breakdown of where that pet seeking occurred. So another way to get added detail is to use these buttons up on the right-hand corner of the map to zoom in and out. Or if you want to click on a bubble within a state, for California, for instance, you'll see all the others have kind of grayed out. And then if you right click on that, you'll have the option to drill down. And what that's going to do is give you a visual representation of all the cities that you can then expand upon over here at right. You can also continue to move in to get more detail. So you can see where the clusters of pet seeking occurred. And if you hover over each of these individual clusters, you will get a total for that area where the pet seeking happened. To reset the map, you can zoom out here, you can collapse here, or you can come over here and reset by clicking on supply demand, and it'll bring you back to the top of the page. One other navigation tip I'd like to point out is that as you're engaging with these filters, so if you are only concerned with cats, you'll see that the total pet searches for cats drop down to 673,000. You can get more details. So if you're only interested in adult cats, you will see that there are 16,000 adult cat searches in the United States. And then if you are wanting to remove a filter that you applied, you can click on the eraser up in the top right corner of each of these categories, and it will take you back to the default of all. One additional navigation tip that I'm going to show you: to get from the demand side to the supply side, you go all the way down to the bottom of the screen and you click over here on supply. So supply is a little bit different than the demand side. The demand side is all pets seeking in the United States for the 7-day period of Saturday through Sunday. The supply side is cats and dogs posted as available for adoption on Petfinder for the same time period, the prior week, Sunday through Saturday. And the categories that you see at the top that you can filter on are the same primary categories that you all enter when you list a pet for adoption. So 212,000 pets posted for adoption, cats and dogs in the US last week, Sunday through Saturday. If we're interested in only the cat portion of that segment, we can filter, and there were 108,000 cats posted for adoption. Again, you'll see at right, you have the columns that give you the state-by-state total. You have the same plus and minus navigation buttons, but the one difference is that when you expand the state, you will see the cities, and you can do the same here where you right-click and drill down to get into that level of detail. But you can also expand the city, and you will get a shelter and rescue list of where those animals that you're searching on are located within those cities. So it gives you even more detail, and what we hope it will empower you all to do is make some really distinct and informed decisions about possible movement of pets from one location to another based on what you're seeing on the demand side, where the interests may lie. So we're really excited about this new tool, and we hope that you are too. We will be doing some webinar sessions later in the year and into 2023 to talk about this tool and how it's being used. And we look forward to hearing from you all and knowing what you think about it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I hope I'm back. I hope y'all can see me again and see the screen. Let's see. Pop quiz. What's the one thing you need to do to access the supply demand feature on Petfinder? Hopefully you immediately answered log into my account, because that's all that you need to do. And again, it's pro.petfinder.com. Go to login and then enter your login credentials for the for email password. If you have problems with that, we also have our outreach email that we're going to display at the end of this webinar, so you can reach out to us at any time for any reason, really, but also specifically if you have login issues. So this feature is only available to Petfinder shelters and rescues. It is not available to the general public, but there is nothing else you need to do to enable it. It's there for you when you log into your site. We wanted to take just a quick moment and recognize the amazing person who created this feature. So Mike Chow is a data analyst extraordinaire and frankly a wizard in my opinion. And he is responsible for building the supply demand feature that you all are seeing today. So hi Mike, welcome.
Hi, thanks Jessica. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, so I wanted to just take a minute to let you introduce yourself, tell us how long you've been with Petfinder and Purina, and a little bit about your background prior to that.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Mike Shao. I've been with Purina for almost exactly 2 years now. My role is the digital analyst, so I'm responsible for everything related to reporting, web analytics, A/B testing, and stuff like that. And I've been working on Petfinder website, the member portal, and also the app as well. Prior to that, so I'm based in Jacksonville, Florida. So prior to Purina, I worked at Steinmart.com as their web analyst. So if you guys aren't familiar, that was like Steinmart was like a off-price e-commerce discount retailer that was unfortunately one of the victims of the pandemic. But I worked there for 4 or 5 years, and prior to that, I worked at a digital marketing agency called Mech Labs, which really focused on A/B testing as well, also as an analytics role.
Oh, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit about how you were able to create this kind of visualization and insight tool. What all went into it?
Yeah, so the report is built in Power BI. For the supply side, for the demand side, all of that data comes from Google Analytics, which a lot of you shelters probably are familiar with. The most widely used analytics tool out there. It's a behavioral tracking tool from Google that uses completely anonymized data to kind of figure out what is and what isn't working on a website. What are people interacting with? What do your users care about the most? The supply side is actually pulled by another team member, Kristen Winterhalter. He's not here, but she pulls that directly out of the Petfinder production database, and she sends that to me, and I use that to update the report.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of manual manipulation going on, but I also think it's important to note that this is on the seeking side anonymized data, so we don't have to worry about any privacy issues there. It's already been anonymized through Google Analytics. So what was your kind of thought process as you pulled this together, being new to animal welfare? I mean, was there anything that struck you as you kind of compiled all this?
So I think the main thing that I was thinking of as I was putting the report together was I wanted to make it as simple use as possible. I wanted to make both the demand and supply side similar enough to where someone could put these side by side and kind of easily see, this is an area that has really high demand relative to pets available and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to make the way the filters work a little more like kind of similar between the two, but that's a little more of a challenge just because on the demand side, on a website, people can search for multiple ages and stuff like that. But obviously on the supply side, like a pet only has one age. But try to keep those as close as possible.
Yeah, that's a really interesting call out. I bet that was really a challenge, but you did an amazing job at it. So we're very grateful. So is there anything that you think our audience should keep in mind when they're looking at the pet seeking data?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is the metric that we're looking at, pet searches, is exactly that. It's searches, it's not unique sessions or unique users. So the way we count searches on Petfinder is, on a lot of our pages, people can go into a drop down and say they want to search for a dog or a cat or other type of animal. Also on the search results pages, the filters that we were talking about, we count search refinements as additional searches. So if someone's on a search results page and they say they want puppy and young animals, we count that as a separate search.
That is really good information to have as we're working through this. So can you tell us what you're working on now? I mean, the stuff that you do is really fascinating to me. So is there any like little previews you can offer us about anything that might be on your plate right now?
Yeah, so there's kind of some like in the background work being done for Petfinder data platform. So the data that Kristen pulls for the supply side, right now she's manually pulling that weekly from the production database, but that data is going into a data warehouse called Snowflake. So once that integration, I think right now we're in the middle of testing it, but once that's done, we'll be able to automate this report a little more to the point where we don't have to manually change things. and also working with some other folks from the Purina analytics team. Once that snowflake collection is complete, we're thinking about doing some additional work as far as like doing some more modeling, kind of connecting the supply and demand data, and maybe there's another way of like showing propensity or something like that.
Okay, wonderful. Can't wait to see it. So real quick, before I let you go, I wanted to, hopefully y'all can see my screen again. So parting thing, tell us about Obi-Wan. He's adorable.
Yeah, so Obi-Wan is a single kitty. He doesn't get along with other kitties. He is 16 pounds, but the vet tells us that's a healthy weight because he's just very large. But he's a very sweet cat. He's the first pet I've had since I like moved out of my parents' house. So he's 8 years old, I think.
Oh, wow. All right. So he's a middle-aged lad. So that's excellent. Well, thank you for letting me pepper you with questions. And I hope you'll stay on because I'm going to go through some preliminary findings that we've pulled out of the tool that you built. And I might ask you to offer a little bit of clarity on a couple of things, especially if I misspeak. So thank you for joining us, and please hang around for a little bit.
All right, will do. Thank you.
So we've really just started to dig into the insights of our supply demand feature on Petfinder, and we're planning to do some periodic publication of updates as we gather and analyze pet seeking data and adoptable pet data across the US. Right now, we're going to spend just a few minutes sharing what we've already learned. So I hope you find this interesting. So total 2022. This number astonished me. So, I mean, we're almost at 250 million with a B, 229 million pet searches conducted on Petfinder in 2022. That's about 4.3 million searches a week, or about 600,000, a little bit more than that every day. So a ton of pet seeking going on the site, which is fantastic to see. There's a however. So however, if we map that out over the course of the past year, you will note that there has been a decline in pet seeking activity. I don't think this is breaking news to you all. I mean, what I've been hearing in the industry is that you have noticed a decline in adoption interest. So we've noticed it too. And this is obviously contributing to the longer length of stay, the bottlenecks that have been discussed in shelter, and just more animals in your shelters and in your foster systems for longer. A couple of interesting things to note. This spike that you see that's just past halfway-ish, that coincides with the week that 4th of July falls in. So I thought it was really fascinating there was such a huge spike in pet seeking for that week. I think we have a lot more to dig into there. If it's something around just people who have lost a pet during that holiday week, which we know happens with fireworks, are they coming to Petfinder in search of a pet that they potentially lost? So I think there's a lot we can kind of dissect and look at, but that was just fascinating to me that we saw that. And then similarly, the dip that we see here, that coincides with roughly the 2nd to 3rd week of August. And so I was trying to think like, what's going on in my life then? And so that's like return to school for kiddos, or last minute summer vacation, or, you know, really you're just kind of getting into your fall routine. So I'm wondering if that's influencing and kind of distracting folks from pet seeking at a normal, or what we consider a standard rate. So this is the kind of things that we hope to be able to dig into. I am really happy to see this uptick that we're seeing towards end of year, and hope that that kind of pet seeking continues. We wanted to take a minute and share a little love with our non-dog cat species. We love all of the animals that are posted for adoption on Petfinder, obviously. While our new feature is focused on dog cat currently, on the pet seeking side, so on the people coming to the site and searching, our groups that do not focus on dog cat can go on and look at that pet seeking activity using our demand feature. So you'll note that this past year on Petfinder, 3.3 million searches for the little fuzzies, rabbits leading that category. And then, you know, the feathers and equines are second and third in terms of search volume or searches happening on site for the non-cat dog species. So I hope all of our shelters and rescues can find value in getting some insights out of what pet seekers are doing on Petfinder. But if we go into dog specifically, the dog cat side, there were 150 million searches for dogs on site last year, or in 2022, this past year. 26 million of those used no search filter to refine their results. So that's just 17%, but I mean, considering that we have such a huge amount of pet searches happening, just 17% is still 26 million. I think that's worth noting. So of the filters that were used, we see that age was the most commonly used for dog, and then breed and size each take about a third. So despite our efforts to remove labels, consumers, potential adopters are still using those to refine their searches, which is interesting. And then we see the smaller categories for the good with, which is good with dogs, children, cats. And then the health behavior, so the house training, we also looped special needs into this category of health and behavior. One thing that was interesting that we're going to go into next is color. So even though only 1% of pet seekers conducting searches use a search with a color filter, of those, black dogs rule, which I thought was really fascinating. This is actually something that Mike uncovered in some research that he pulled out. I think even maybe, Mike, it was like for the end of 2021, it was consumer activity. And we saw this pop for black dogs. It's interesting to me that that held true as a trend throughout 2022. So still towards the tail end of this year, that is still the case, that the black dogs are leading the pack in terms of search activity or searches on site. Something that is not a surprise to any of you, when they're searching by size, they are most frequently engaging with the small filter to search for animals. And I think this supports the experience that you all have of the large, extra large guys spending more time in your care. So I would imagine that this is not shocking to any of you, and I think we can all, you know, try and take away some learnings for how can we promote the benefits of those big guys. So some of the little things that are interesting to me. I am fascinated with the fact that people are more concerned about a new dog being good with another dog in the home versus a child in the home. So I don't know, I think we have some opportunities to learn there. Is that because the people searching are more likely to have other pets instead of children at this point in their lives? Or, you know, are the kids old enough that it doesn't matter? And I just think that's really interesting to me that they obviously are more concerned about how that pet's going to get along with another dog in the house. The other search characteristics, only 6% of the total of special characteristics were using house trained, and just 1% of that 7 was special needs. So the 6% I think is a positive, because I think it shows that people are maybe not as concerned with that being accomplished when they're searching. Maybe they recognize that there's some room for that dog to adjust in home, and accidents might happen on the front end. Hopefully, I might be an optimist, but that could be the case. And then the 1% search for special needs, I think we have some room there to maybe try to educate on the benefits of bringing a special needs dog into your home. I think there's a place for all animals in loving homes. So maybe we'll try to work on some collective messaging together. This graph over at the bottom right, so the default radius on Petfinder for searches is 100 miles. So 80% of the searches are not changing that default radius. So either we've hit the mark on this one, or they're not noticing the radius, or they're not really concerned at this point in their search activity. We just see a little bit of interest on anywhere and a little bit of collective interest on less than 100 miles. Moving on. So if we look at cat searches. Fewer than dog, but still significant, 41 million cat searches on Petfinder in 2022. More of them did not use a filter, so 24% versus 17. That represents 9 million. And then there's a little bit of variation between cat and dog when we start talking about the filters that they did use. Age still tops the list. That's the main concern. And I think that we've all seen that the young guys tend to move more quickly. But I was surprised that breed was 18% versus size, which on the dog side was a third of the search filter, a third of the time that search filters were used. And here it's only 7%. So that was interesting to me. And then you have the other characteristics noted. So diving into those, once again, the black cats and kitties rule. So that was really surprising to me as well. But black and tuxedo, those combined, it's the same percentage of search frequency that the dog filter for black was used. So that was fascinating. What is kind of a bummer, in my opinion, is I would have thought that the tortoiseshell would have done better, because having owned a tortoiseshell, they're beautiful. And I loved our kitty Smudge very much, who had the cutest peach nose with, dark coloring all around. So tortoises have my heart. Once again, on the size, small matters, but there's a little bit of nuance here. I mean, Mike, you recently pulled out some consumer data that put more of a finer point on what I've shown here. What did you find with the large and extra large?
Hey, yeah. So it seemed like for cat searchers, you already touched on this, they care a little less about size, but of the ones that are searching for size, cat searchers seemed more open to wanting larger cats than dogs.
Yeah, I mean, if we think back the dog slides, the collective large, extra large totaled was 10%. But here, what you found when you were doing some research, that it was like 14% of the time they were using extra large in the cat area, which I wouldn't even think of people as defining a cat as extra large. So that was interesting to me. So I think there's so many different ways we can slice and dice and learn from all of this. Some more cat specifics. So much like the dog seekers, the cat seekers are very interested in whether or not a new cat will get along with a cat currently in home. So the good with cats was most commonly used. Children come in third here. So the cat seekers are even more concerned about whether or not that cat's going to get along with the dog in the house, and then they'll worry about the kids later. So that was interesting to me. Only 7% of those who were conducting cat searches included the use of the house trained, litter box trained, special needs, or declawed. So I was happy to see that. I think we're all happy to see when declawed is not something that people are searching on. And then also similar to the dogs, there's not a lot of activity with changing or editing that search radius. So that was interesting to see. So the questions that at some point they all seem to ask, what do you think this dog is? This was the list of top breed searches on Petfinder in 2022. So Chihuahuas ruled, which was fascinating. Something else that I thought was interesting about this list was the second and third, the Golden Retriever and German Shepherd. Those are not small dogs, yet the most commonly used size filter for dogs, 60%, was small. So that's just interesting to me that they would rank so high, but people are still looking at small. Conversely, or similarly, on the cat side, the most commonly searched breed of cat was Maine Coon, which is a pretty large breed of cat. So it's interesting that the majority were still picking small, and yet when they are picking large, that group that's picking large and extra large for cat, they're going all in. They're going Maine Coon. So, so all of this was interesting, but we also want it to be useful. So we think that, we can really start generating some insights that can be used in your everyday work. So really, I mean, some of the things I've been thinking of is how do we educate about the value of adult animals and larger animals? They already know the routine of being in a household, or, you know, they've already kind of gotten out of that puppy crazy time, or I've always thought that the larger animals were almost more well suited to apartment living or confined living spaces in some respects because they're not as high strung as some of those tiny ones. But you know, I mean, that's just an observation. That's not fact. I'm just saying that, like, I think there's some real benefits that we can be communicating about these large adults that are in shelter. And it's also interesting to me that more pet seekers are looking for information around how that pet's going to get along with another animal over getting along with a child. So are there opportunities to talk about how pets are interacting in play groups while in your care, or how they interact if they're going on walks with a buddy? I think there's some things that can kind of help pet seekers understand if that animal truly does get along with other animals. And then the other takeaway that I've taken just from this really high level view is that the filters that we use when we're describing, they matter. So anything that you can do to indicate something unique about this pet is going to return it in a search result that's being refined more frequently than not on Petfinder. And if you remember back to earlier in the year, we did discuss that we have found that pet postings that use at least one search filter on Petfinder come off of our site 20 to 25 days faster than pet postings with no search filters indicated. So it's something to think about as you're creating those pet postings and putting them up on the site. So hopefully you've picked up some useful ideas around what people are doing and how you might craft a pet bio or use photos that best present the animals in your care. That said, we know this just scratches the surface. And so what we're hoping is that we're going to be able to learn much more about pet seeking activity and pets posted. I mean, this that we've talked about today doesn't even really scratch the surface, and it doesn't even look at the geographic distribution to uncover local or regional trends. To do that, we are at Petfinder working with Humane Rescue Alliance, and today Ariel Zhang, Vice President of National Programs at HRA, has joined us to talk about some of the work that we're hoping to partner on in the coming year and more in the near term, the weeks and months ahead. Ariel, can you join us and say hello and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Yes, so as Jessica mentioned, I'm Ariel Zhang, Vice President of National Programs at Humane Rescue Alliance. And first, I'd like to say that that is my dog in the picture. So she is a Chihuahua mix, which makes me feel like it's kind of funny because you said Chihuahua is the most searched for. And it is always a humbling moment when you end your year finding out that you are incredibly average. So I love that for myself. But as a part of my work at Humane Rescue Alliance, I lead our way station strategy work and our data team. So this is right up my alley. And under the Humane Rescue Alliance umbrella, we have the St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center, which this year has transported their 20,000th animal. So it's really exciting time for us. And we are thrilled that Petfinder and Purina has been really generous in sharing their data with us as we move into the new year and talk about strategy work.
Yeah, so we're really excited to be with you too. Do you want me to hop ahead to the next slide, or do you want to talk through kind of Humane Rescue Alliance's work or anything else before I move on?
Yeah, I mean, we can hop on to the next slide.
Okay.
So when we look at the data that is being available or becoming available to us, these are some kind of the sample questions that we're seeing on the screen here is, you know, can transport networks be approved by understanding pet seeking? Can adoptions increase if pets are moved to areas of high levels of pet seeking? And then, of course, is there differences between types of animals and dogs and cats here in this question? But what you'll notice particularly is that a lot of this is focused on consumer behavior. So when we look at transport work, we really do think about it from a supply and demand perspective, because we want to make sure that the animals that we're moving, because you know they undergo a decent somewhat of stress, right, when they go through the transport process, going from one organization to another and just being on the road. we want to make sure that we're setting those animals up for success as much as possible. Additionally, we want to make sure that, as we're focused on live outcomes, that those animals, that we meet the consumer demands in those areas, because potentially there's potential that we're not currently meeting. And so as we have this data, to optimize those numbers as much as possible. And so we're really excited for the data and going into the next year, leveraging it through our work.
Yeah, so we are super excited to be working with you all and recognize you all as kind of a leader in the transport space. So I think there's going to be a lot of great things to come. And I mean, really what we hope to do is, either help create new or fine tune existing, or support the rationale for decreasing. I mean, wouldn't that be a magical time if we were able to do that, because pets didn't need to move? But really, we're hoping that the research findings that we're going to be partnering with you all on and developing get more pets into homes. I mean, that's our ultimate goal. And how can we use some of the insights that we already have available to us just by aggregating them together and looking at them collectively? So much more to come. We also want to hear from you all. So part of the reason that we set this webinar up this way is to show you how to get to the feature, how to get on and navigate through the feature, what's possible to learn from it, and then let you know that we're going to be researching and we want to know how you're using it. So we want you to give us feedback. What else would you like to see? What could make it better? Is it working for you? And is it helpful in pet saving? So with that, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Marcy, and we can start answering any questions that you all might have.
All right. So I'm going to invite all our wonderful panelists to come back, please. Turn on your cameras, turn on your mics. We have a lot of good questions. And we have about a little, like 17 minutes. If we'll wrap up right at the hour, but if we do have any lingering questions, we may do some extra credit for you overachievers out there like myself, to learn all you can. So we're going to get started right away. And I'm going to ask some of the more simple ones, and then we're going to kind of get some great ones. I'm so excited. Okay, so if you haven't logged in a while, or if I haven't logged in a while, where again do I recover, that forgot password? Where can I find that magic button?
So pro.petfinder.com. In the top right corner of that landing screen, you click login. And then you're going to be taken to a login screen that's basically just email password. And over in that password link, it's going to say forgot. And you're going to click on that because that's where you should go.
Yes. I'm very good at that with my Netflix account.
Right.
I forget my login. And I can answer this one. So for replay, yes, we will have a replay ASAP, hopefully by beginning of next week. As soon as we can possibly get it up, we will get it out to you folks, and we will be sending the replay out to all attendees and registrants. So please do look for that. I have a countries question. So when will this, for Canada and our other countries, when will this be available?
So I think Mike can probably give a more thoughtful response. My understanding is that there are some data sharing regulations that differ based on country. Is that accurate, Mike?
Yeah, so over the past few years, there's been data privacy legislation across both Europe and also some places in the US, like California. So what we've had to do to address those is implement this software called OneTrust, which limits the amount of data that we can collect for users outside of the United States. So as far as the demand data goes, all pretty much everything that we were getting in Google Analytics for Mexico and Canada has basically dropped down to almost nothing. So if we didn't include that, it would just look like there's no one searching for pets on Petfinder those places, but that's actually not true because we're just not capturing that in analytics.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And then another question, Mike, this might be for you, for other species as well. When will that be implemented?
Other species within the supply side?
Didn't say, but if that's how we want to answer, sure.
Okay, I think so because
Hearing on the demand side.
Yeah.
So we've got,
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's something we have to talk to the team about. I think originally we wanted the scope to just be cats and dogs, but I mean we certainly had that data available. So yeah, we can definitely talk about it.
Great. Okay, we're gonna get into some more nitty-gritty questions, which I'm so excited. And I do have a suggestion, a dev suggestion for you, Mike, later on too. So we did get a question, and I have actually an example as well. So someone asked, how do you envision Petfinder Pro users will use this feature when the intent is to identify potential locations to send animals on transports to other rescues? And then someone asked a very interesting kind of specific case study that might highlight and may be serving as a good example for you to answer this. They said, will we be able to tell by geography where tuxedos or black cats are in demand? We are in Georgia and we can't give them away. I need to transport somewhere else if possible. They are so sweet. And as a former black kitty mama before he went over Rainbow Bridge, I can attest to that. So if someone is all of a sudden getting, oh my gosh, this, I can see how this would work, but they may need some guidance on how to get that started. Perhaps Ariel and Jessica, you could provide some ideas on maybe how they can get that building transport network connection started.
So Ariel, I think you would have a lot of the programmatic expertise, as I'm hearing my dog chew something that they should not be chewing. I think you would have more of the programmatic expertise. I think from the tactical perspective on Petfinder, you would go into the pet searches and you could filter by cat and then filter by color, and you would see where pet searches for black cats happened on Petfinder over the past week. That would give you an idea of the communities where there seems to be a tendency to look for those colors. Then establishing connections. Ariel, do you have any resources or any recommendations?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I am somewhat new to this work, and this data is also relatively new for us. And I think that's what we're going to be exploring in the next year is, can that data be leveraged, right? Knowing where black cats are currently being searched and then reaching out to organizations in that area to say, hey, clearly you have a demand. What does your adoption floor look like? How full is your organization? Do you have the capacity to receive? I think that's part of the test that we'll be doing over the course of the next year, is to see if we can operationalize that data.
Yeah, so currently, if someone is experiencing this scenario in real time, you could take the steps that I've outlined immediately, but then in those communities, if you went over to the demand side, you could see where cat organizations are located by going over to the, have to say it right, demand side, the pets posted for adoption. And if you sort by cats, you can at least see where those rescues currently have cats in residence. And that will give you an idea of where those organizations are. So that might be a starting point of who to reach out to in destination communities potentially.
That's great. That's great feedback. Then we have another question for rescue who doesn't have a physical address. When attempted to list a pet in an area of high demand, we needed an address physical location.
Yes, I mean, that's a requirement for Petfinder accounts. We do need a physical location. They don't have to be published, but we do need a location for that pet to reside.
Okay. And we have a feedback for someone. How are you collecting feedback? So someone, perhaps in the next month everyone's trying this out, going through the data, discovering potential new partners. How is the best way to give that feedback so Mike can develop what we need?
Right. So there are a number of ways. So outreach at petfinder.com. That will arrive at Ashley's email. And so that's an excellent way to share feedback in a very one-on-one kind of level. And we do actually compile, review, share that with the development team and talk through kind of what those suggestions mean and how they might work. There's also a user panel that you can join. So we encourage and invite all of our shelter rescue partners to join our user testing panel. And so they will be solicited at various times throughout the year to join us and provide feedback in any number of ways. Sometimes it's on-screen user sessions, sometimes it's, you know, kind of information sharing times. We love hearing from members. We definitely want to hear from you all.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, and maybe some suggestions, Mike. We have one dev. It would be helpful to list capacity of shelters to see which room to possibly take in transported pets from more crowded shelters. So that's potentiality for something to consider. We do have a question about functionality. Do members have access to a graph that shows which months are highest adoption months for their organization?
Not currently, but I mean, Mike, I think that's something that we can talk about when we're pulling out trends and going into kind of a schedule of publications. I mean, that's something that we can get at and share out, but it is not available on the tool right now.
Okay.
So I think there's a separate statistics page in Pro that might have that, I think, right? The stats page. We're trying to get like,
and so that would be on the pets posted on their page, correct? So that's not all activity.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. In that case, we would have to do what you suggested, like a publication or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a good point. If they're talking about just their own pets and the statistics around those, that is on our reporting feature that we've revamped and released earlier this year. So that's a possibility.
Okay, so that is doable. Okay. Question, do the size of cats correspond with the age? Have you looked if people are searching for small cats tending to look more kittens than adults?
I don't know. Mike, do you know?
That's a good question. Like, so I would have to look into it. Like the report that Jessica alluded to earlier was really looking at like each of these individual fields, what people were selecting. But within Google Analytics, we certainly do have the ability to segment by, you know, these users search for young and puppy. Like if they also search for size, what did they search for? So. I don't know off the top of my head, but that is available.
It would be interesting to look and see how many searches use just one filter, how many use two, how many use multiple, like just to see how detailed people get, like how specific do you need to be? That would be interesting.
Right. Here's another. Let's see, is there a way to potentially add contact info for the rescues and shelters listed in case we need to reach out? So that's an outreach question and a connection question for new transport opportunities, I think.
So that's something that we are discussing. I mean, actually, we had a strikingly relevant conversation about this right before we came on air. Right now, there is not the possibility to reach out to a shelter on the supply demand feature. So groups would have to go back out into their Petfinder profile, search for a shelter or rescue by name, and then look for their publicly published contact information. It's a little bit of work to get there. But we have discussed in the future allowing shelters and rescues to decide whether or not they want to indicate that they're available for transport and then publish contact information. to minimize the steps. But I think we need to do a little bit more research there and make sure that that's what all of our members want, or they have the option to choose to do that or not.
Right. And Ariel, when we were talking before, I think for, like a new group or someone just starting kind of the transport journey or researching, maybe it's something that they wanted to do in 2023. You mentioned intentionality, which really was striking to me. So if someone is new, just learning about this new tool, getting their feet wet, what do you mean by intentionality when reaching out to transport partners?
Yeah, so I think that, of course, we all want to come from a life-saving perspective and having live outcomes, and that's of course very important. But I think that also looking at it from, we want to make sure that we're not just making it somebody else's kind of problem. And intentionality is really making sure that that animal is set up for success. So finding an organization where that animal is going to be successful and have a short length of stay, is highly adoptable in that area, and having some strategy behind it, rather than finding space. I think that's the intentionality behind the transport work.
Yeah, no, I love that term, and that word is, really made me think and consider, transport with purpose. And the way you explain it really makes sense. Let's see. So we got a lot of good stuff. Will there be a push to fully engage organizations regarding transport networking, or will their role be more passive? Will we be contacted in the event an opportunity may exist, and how that will occur? So it sounds like right now, it sounds very organic and very community grassroots driven. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this has grown out of post-COVID conversations and a kind of reflection on how the industry came together during COVID. I think that there was a lot of collaboration there. And so as we've all gone back to our normal lives, I think that maybe some of that collaborative spirit has started to wane, just as we all get into the stress of what's facing us every day. So hopefully, I mean, part of the intention was this tool would again allow us to start to come back together and solve some really large industry problems. I think we would look to our shelters and rescues to tell us how much they wanted us to step into the transport space. We always want to support and lift up. We don't want to preach or direct. So if they are asking, if they're interested, if they're looking to us to help provide and facilitate those connections, that's something that we can work toward.
That's wonderful. Okay. Another kind of logistical question, operations question. Will we ever get a chance to see data past the 1 week mark? Could we choose to see the past month, etc.?
Well, I mean, we've talked about that quite a bit. I don't know what the technical lift is there. That's for Mike to give us a lot more context on. I know that I think part of the conversation is how broad would we open up that window, and then what does it mean in terms of like the load that we have to carry on the platform, if that makes sense. Mike, you can add to that.
Yeah, so I think originally we settled on a week because it kind of shows like, if someone's logging in week to week, they can kind of see like subtle changes and trends. As far as the technical lift, I don't think it's going to be that big of one. But yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about it. I just, as far as designing goes, we thought like for most members, seeing something that kind of moved in somewhat short amount of time, that's kind of showing, what's changing or what's the most recent and most relevant would be best.
Yeah. I think the theme here, Marcy, that we want to convey is that a lot of this is meant to be collaborative. So it's what our members want and need. That's what we want to, that's how we want to evolve this feature, and really how we want to kind of make all of the updates and enhancements that we make to the site.
Right, which leads me into kind of our final reminders and setting everyone up for success. We do have a couple of questions, so we'll hang around for a few minutes to get those answered.
Yep.
But for everyone else, thank you so much for being here. So grateful. Like I said, your time is extremely valuable, and I'm honored that everyone is here today. And thank you to our panelists. Such great info. I learned so much. Black hats, yes. I'm so
right?
Right. So when as we're answering the rest of the questions, I'm gonna put as the supply and demand help article in the chat. So stick around just for that. I wanted to remind everyone, if you have follow-up questions, remember to go to outreach@petfinder.com. It's a very good email. I would say bookmark it, but that's not a website, Marcy. It's an email address. So save it in your contacts. And then when you leave the webinar today, there is an exit survey. We would love your feedback, like I said, and as Jessica said, that it's about what you need, and it's about how Petfinder can come alongside and really develop a tool that can be of use. If we didn't answer your question today, you are welcome to email us using, again, that email. We'd love to answer. And thank you for everyone. For you extra credit folks, we're going to answer just a couple more questions. Did I miss anything for a send-off and setting everyone up for success, Jessica?
You know what? I think that just real quick, one person who is attending this webinar, who typically is on this webinar, is Miss Katie Schmooky, and we are so sad that Katie is leaving the Petfinder team, but so happy that we're keeping her in the Purina family. So I know you all have enjoyed seeing Katie. There she is. Katie's face in the past, and you know, she's still with us. She's just not going to be on the webinars anymore.
I'll still attend them. Please still send me the invitation. But it's true to work on this team. I'll miss everyone so much.
We'll still pull you in for Q&A.
Please do.
A guest Q&A person. Katie, it's such a joy to work with you. Thank you so much for all that you do. Okay, so we do have a couple just of kind of little technical questions, which I'm excited about again. And so we have someone says, are you using the rescue location or pet location? I go into Petfinder Pro to modify the default location since I am in Little Rock, Arkansas, but the rescue HQ is in Atlanta, Georgia. So are you just using the rescue location regardless of the pet location in the system? Not sure how much of this exists. I know that's a little technical.
That is pretty technical. I think I got it. I think what they're asking is, and their assumption was correct. So we are using the rescue location at this time.
Okay.
But I mean, we would ideally want Mike to confirm that, but I believe that's what's happening right now. And one of the things in the future that we're looking to do is be able to more clearly define where that pet is within the rescue's multiple locations versus just their headquarters.
Okay, helpful to know. And then another dev suggestion, having a field that shelters could toggle on and off for transport capacity would be helpful, including the types of animals they are seeking to receive. That would be an amazingly helpful feature. So again,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. That would be amazing.
Go to that panel, whoever did that question. Voice, we want to hear you at the round table for sure. So I think that's all kind of the real nitty gritty questions. Again, we have someone from a small shelter in Las Vegas. Kind of a general question, might be one that's good to wrap up with. If you're a smaller group, if you're just getting started again, they said, we're a small little shelter in Las Vegas. How does the supply demand feature help me? And I think, you know, I think discovering each other is a really good reason. But if there's anything you want to end with that, I think that would be a great last question.
Well, hopefully what the feature will do is give you some insight if you're getting back into transport on where pet seeking is happening. And then on the flip side, where pets currently are located. So if that means that it is more advantageous to move that pet in a radius that's closer to Las Vegas, we're hopeful that you might be able to glean that information from looking at the two sides of the map. Versus we know that some transport networks are based upon existing networking within the industry and maybe aren't the most direct or shortest geographic space. So Ariel, do you have any other comments for that?
Yeah, so I think that the data is really interesting for really any type of organization, but especially if you're an organization that's not an open admissions organization, you're choosing what you're pulling or what you're accepting into the organization. I think it's about going into the tool and seeing what are people looking for, right? What is there a demand for in your local communities? And then asking yourself, is that the inventory of animals that I have? And if it isn't, then it's probably building relationships and finding an area where that animal is going to be successful. And then if it represents, the diversity that you have at your organization, then congratulations, you hit the jackpot, right? You've got the community trained to exactly what you have. That's amazing news. And in which case, then you have to find those people, which I think that it helps your decision making on what you're prioritizing, what strategies you need to prioritize, what kind of marketing you need to prioritize. Is it marketing or is it finding transport? But just building some priorities as to what you're doing to get those animals out.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you both.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone. That was amazing. I love that. I mean, my takeaway was that black critters are great.
That's still just
everyone loves them.
I don't know why that it's shocking to me.
It is a little mind-blowing. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Again, please fill out the exit survey. You can throw your light bulb moment in the exit survey too. To
Yes.
Blow your mind.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear. Remember outreach at petfinder.com, how you connect for feedback, and we hope that you play with the tool, learn it, engage, and just so excited that you chose spend your hour with us today. So
yes, thank you.
We look forward to the next time when we'll see each other again. So thank you, Ariel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.